Watermarks. Some of you guys might be using them, some of you guys might have used them in the past, and if you haven't, you've probably seen them around. Sometimes they look like this, sometimes they'll look like this, sometimes they'll even look like this. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about whether or not I think you should be using watermarks for your photos. What's up guys, I'm Nick of CamCrunch, and in this channel, I help you guys get the most out of your cameras. So again, like I said in the intro, in this video we're going to be talking about watermarks and whether or not I think you should be using them for your photos. But before we get into that, let's just first talk about what watermarks are, what they're used for, why people generally use them. And then we can go into the discussion on whether or not we should be using them or we shouldn't be using them. So watermarks are little marks, I guess, that people place on their photos. And they do this for varying reasons. One of the reasons is just to show people who took that photo. It's sort of like when an artist finishes a painting, they'll sign their name somewhere. And that's so that people who view that painting know who painted it. Now, the other reason for using a watermark is so that people can't use that photo without permission. Because as we know, sometimes if you have a good photo, sometimes people take that photo and use it without asking, whether it's just, for them, maybe like a wallpaper or something like that. But sometimes in the extreme cases, they might use it for commercial purposes to make more money using that photo that they didn't take or that they didn't have permission to use. So that's an extreme case of why people use watermarks. So getting that out of the way, now I want to talk a little bit about what my thoughts are on watermarks and how I feel people should go about using watermarks. So when it comes to watermarks, my view is that anything that you add to a photo affects that photo. So if you put your name in the bottom of a photo, it changes the whole look. If you make it really bold, then viewers' eyes will go to that watermark. If you make it nice and subtle, it might not affect that photo as much. If it's like semi-transparent, kind of hidden, then it might not affect that work so much. But anything that you add will affect the photo. That's just how it is. Even when painters sign their paintings, you can sometimes get drawn to that. That's why some painters sort of camouflage their signatures or hide their signatures so that it's not such a prominent part in the paintings, whereas some really make it obvious, really make it bold so that you know who painted it right off the bat. In the present day, I do not use any watermarks for any of my photos. Again, because I think that sometimes it can be a very big distraction. When people are viewing your images, the watermark can get in the way. Their eyes can get drawn to that. And I just feel that sometimes it looks out of place. It just doesn't look right. So for me personally, I do not use watermarks. Now, should you be using watermarks? Well, that's really up to you. That's how you feel. That depends on how you feel about your photos. If your photos are highly sought after, there are many factors that can go and play a role in whether or not you are watermarking your photos. But if you do watermark your photos, these are just some of the things that I think you should keep in mind. First and foremost, I think watermarks should be simple and again shouldn't distract from that photo as much as possible. So if you can, use that watermark and put it in one of the corners of your photo, whether that's the bottom right, bottom left. You can do the top or the bottom. You can even do bottom center, something like that. Just something plain and something simple. I have a preference towards sans serif fonts, plain blocky fonts, so that the typeface looks more streamlined. But I know a lot of people like that signature cursive font. I'm not such a big fan on that, but if that's your cup of tea, then definitely go for it. But again, try to keep it as minimal as you can. Try to keep it in one of the sides of the photo so that it doesn't distract too much, so that people sort of know it's there and then they can appreciate the rest of the photo by itself. Now here are some no-nos for watermarks. One, do not place your watermark across your photo. I think that's absolutely tasteless, and you should only do that if you absolutely have to, where maybe you know that your client might not pay for the photo, or I don't know, something serious like that, where you are actually in risk of, losing money or that photo getting stolen. Otherwise, just keep it nice and tasteful, leave it in the corner, keep it simple. Second, unless it's a signature mark or of some sort, make the font that you use legible. I think that the plainer it is, the better, but even if it's not super plain, as long as people can read it, then that's good. But if you have a signature or a sort of symbol to represent your brand, then go ahead and do that. But if you're just using a public typeface that anyone can use, then go for something more simple, something that people can definitely read. And the last thing I want to say is that I think you should be consistent. So if you're going to watermark your photos in the bottom right, try to do it for all the photos. I know it's not going to work for every single one because maybe the colors and the composition might affect where you put that watermark, but just try to be a little bit more consistent with your watermarks. That way it looks more professional, it looks deliberate, it looks purposeful, and then, you know, it becomes not as distracting because people get used to it and then they don't mind it as much as time goes on. So those are just my thoughts on watermarks. Again, this is a personal thing. You know, some people like it, some people don't. Some people absolutely hate them. I'm a person that doesn't mind watermarks as long as they're done well, done tastefully, and doesn't distract too much from the photo. But again, I personally don't use watermarks for my photos. Some of you guys might say that, you know, you use them for your videos, you use them for all sorts of stuff. It depends on what you're using it for, but for a photo that stands on its own, it's like a work of art, and you don't want that watermark to distract from your photo. It's sort of like a film, you know, if you're doing an instructional video like this, you might have a watermark, but if you're doing a film, you don't really want the watermark to be on that film the whole time, right? So those are just some things to think about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, these are just my opinions. Let me know what you guys think in the comment box down below. I'll be sure to read them. I'll be sure to reply to them. And yeah, again, I'm Nico of Camp Crunch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.